good God, the Buffalo Bills look pretty damn good, right? I mean, everyone and their mother was picking them to win the Super Bowl this year. And I got to say, after what we saw last night, I can understand why. In a game where Josh Allen threw a couple of interceptions, one of which was dropped, the other a bit of an underthrow, but otherwise looked perfect. A game where his running backs fumbled the ball twice. They turned the football over 4 times. They still won 31-10. They sacked Matt Stafford 7 times. They held LA to under 3 yards a carry. Cooper Kupp was really the only person that did anything in that game. So, look, there's going to be a lot of hype and people thumping and pumping and puffing their chests out because of what Buffalo did. I got to say, they look really physical. And as far as offseason acquisitions go, bringing in Von Miller, taking him away from the Los Angeles Rams looks like quite the signing thus far, right? But that's not the story of last night's game if you're listening to the podcast. Tonight's game if you're watching this thing live. Man. I thought that the Rams' run through the playoffs was one where they had a lot of fortune blowing behind them. They had, along the way, a series of, I thought, poor choices that were made by Sean McVay, whether it was giving the ball to Cam Akers as much as he was with a massive lead up on the Bucs in round 2, some clock management decisions in the NFC Championship game, going away from Cooper Kupp entirely for like 10 minutes in the actual Super Bowl that made me feel like he got lucky that he won a Super Bowl. He's always praised as this genius, and I've never really fully bought in. Part of it has to do with the fact that I watched his supposedly vaunted offense score 3 points against a pretty underwhelming New England Patriots team as far as their Super Bowl champions go a couple of years back. But look, they had star players. Isn't that what it's all about? You trade for Matt Stafford, the most recent of them. You trade for Jalen Ramsey. Other older players. They bring in Bobby Wagner from the Seattle Seahawks this offseason. Fuck them picks, right? That's what Sean McVay said. That's what Les Snead said. And both of them just got, I think, extensions today. That's going to keep them with the Los Angeles Rams for the foreseeable future. Fuck them picks does not look very good right now. It doesn't. Because some of those older players that they brought in, and old by NFL standards, we're talking past 26, 27 years old, you are starting to see some decline. And I'm not saying it's from Matt Stafford, even though Matt Stafford basically tried to pull a Jason Street from Friday Night Lights early on in this game. Later on in this game. The game's over. He throws an interception to a defensive lineman, and he tried to take him on head on, and he almost died. I'll give Stafford a ton of credit. He's tough. He changed my perception of him last year. I don't know what the hell he could have done behind that offensive line, which seemed overwhelmed at all times, and that on top of that, didn't have much of a running game to support him. Some of his passes were very off, especially the first interception that he threw. As time wore on, you could kind of tell, all right, now he's just throwing some desperation balls out there. Threw that one a little bit higher to Cooper Kupp. It bounces off his hands. It gets picked off. But I'm not blaming Matt Stafford for this game. I'm taking a look on the defense. Does anyone remember what Jalen Ramsey had to say about Josh Allen back in the day? There was a piece that was put together by, I believe, Mina Kimes. And look, Jalen Ramsey is a guy who's very opinionated. I like that about him. You like to see a cornerback that's going to talk and talk and talk, especially if they walk the actual walk. But this quote doesn't look very good from that column. I think Buffalo Bills draft pick Josh Allen is trash. I don't care what nobody say. He's trash, and it's going to show, too. That's a stupid draft pick to me. We played him this year. He was with the Jaguars at the time, and I'm excited as hell. I hope he's their starting quarterback. He played at Wyoming. Every time they played a big school, like they played Iowa State, which is not a big school in my opinion because I went to Florida State, humble brag, and he threw 5 interceptions. They lost by a couple of touchdowns or something like that. I will actually pile on with Jalen Ramsey. I watched Josh Allen play against Oregon. He looked like shit in that game. I remember doing a mock radio tape because I was applying for a job in Portland, Oregon at the time, and the whole tape was me just making fun of Josh Allen. He never beat a big school, continued Ramsey. If you look at his games against big schools, it was always hella interceptions. Ooh, hella turnovers. It's like, yo, if you're this good, why couldn't you do better? He fits that mold. He's a big, tall quarterback. Big arm, supposedly. I don't see it personally. How the turn tables, in the words of Michael Scott, because holy shit, he was awful. And I gotta say, he hasn't looked particularly good over the last couple of games that he's played. There was a play where he was absolutely toasted against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs. Jamar Chase toasted him on a couple of plays in the Super Bowl. And look, the shelf life of an elite, top-of-the-line corner, it's not that long. And when it hits you fast. See Darrelle Revis. I think I witnessed Darrelle Revis' death at the hands of DeAndre Hopkins with the Houston Texans against the New York Jets a couple of years ago. He was never the same player after that. And maybe Ramsey can bounce back from a couple of poor performances. But in a game where his biggest highlight was the play that he started talking trash to Stephon Diggs after Josh Allen faked running into the end zone and lasered the ball a little bit too hard. Ramsey didn't even deflect it, and Ramsey started talking trash to Stephon Diggs right afterwards. That was his biggest highlight. Per Pro Football Focus, Ramsey allowed a perfect passer rating of 158.3 in week 1. That's from Marcus Mosher, who is the managing editor of the Raiders Wire and the host of Locked On Cowboys, a writer at Pro Football Focus. He was targeted 7 times, allowing 6 receptions for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, Josh Allen had a great night. Josh Allen's been playing awesome in the last couple of games that he's played in. There have been very few incompletions, let alone interceptions that were his fault. Only one of them was his fault in tonight's game. But you're Jalen Ramsey. You're a shutdown corner. You're supposed to be one of the best in the game. You're one of the reasons that some people have faith in the Rams this season. All of a sudden, you look old. Aaron Donald doesn't look old. Aaron Donald still looks like the defensive player of the year that he has a very good chance of being this season. The guy is incredibly strong. The sack he had of Josh Allen in the game was violent, to say the least. But there's another guy who's getting up there in age that was brought in this offseason to be a key cog in the Rams defense. And anyone who's watched the Seattle Seahawks over the last couple of years will tell you that Bobby Wagner was not going to be that guy. Who among us might have told you that? It was me. I'll pat myself on the back for this one. And honestly, all the people who were getting so pissy at me for questioning your all-pro middle linebacker, Bobby Wagner, I want to know what you saw in this game. Because what I saw is a guy in Wagner who hesitated at the goal line to tackle the quarterback, who was consistently, instead of taking on blocks head-on like a linebacker is supposed to do, goes underneath them, goes around them. And a guy who's not making any plays in coverage either when he's matched up against a running back. Is that expected? Maybe not, but at the very least, you got to do something for me out there. And the only thing that Bobby Wagner has proven that he's truly still all-pro caliber at over the last couple of seasons is when he blitzed up the middle. And by the way, he, I think, was in on a sack in this night's game because of a blitz that he had up the middle. And this is no disrespect intended towards Bobby Wagner. The NFL is a really tough league. You lose it quickly in this league. But the people who are coming after me, this is for you. I wasn't biased against the Seahawks. And I think now that you're seeing this guy not in a Seahawks jersey, you're seeing a player who's not that good. So now the Rams are a team that features a quarterback in Matt Stafford who's got a ton of mileage on him. I suffered a little bit more mileage on him after that tackle he tried to make on that interception. You have Jalen Ramsey as one of the linchpins of your defense. A guy in Aaron Donald who almost retired this offseason, though did sign an extension, of course, not a very long one. And Bobby Wagner aboard your defense. You lost Andrew Whitworth in the offseason, and good God, you might need to find a left tackle as soon as possible. Are you going to trade for Laramie Tunsil like someone at the Texans flagship suggested? You might have to trade for somebody if you want to do anything this year. And look, the Rams are all about fuck them picks, right? So maybe that's what they do. But is that going to fix everything? They just looked old tonight. And I would like to give the Bills a little bit more credit. I would like to feel less contrarian when it comes to how I feel about just everyone that was so aboard the Bills bandwagon this offseason. But this game didn't change my mind as much as it will for some. I still need to see more. I am impressed. I felt like they were the more violent and physical team and the more athletic team over the course of this game. They just got to hold on to the ball. They can't drop it. They can't fumble it. And they should have won this game by, honestly, a little bit more. But this game was all about how the Los Angeles Rams didn't look good. And it's so frustrating that team either made the Seahawks look bad, because the Seahawks should have beaten them a lot more often than they did, or that they made it on that run to the Super Bowl last year. It defies logic